we've got Malcolm Roberts here. I've come up to Brisbane and just randomly set up an interview with him. So I'm just going to interview Malcolm Roberts about some current events that have been going on. How you going, Malcolm?
Good to meet you, Neil.
Nice to meet you, mate. I've been watching you on the project and all the other interview shows you've been on, smashing the left, getting the facts out there about climate change and the UN.
Funny that, they're scared of facts, aren't they?
They are.
They're terrified of facts.
Was that pre-recorded, that interview?
With Project?
Yeah, with the project.
No, that was in Brisbane. I was up here in Brisbane.
Was it live or did they pre-record?
Well, it's a funny story. It was live, but all I had in Brisbane was a whole lot of spotlight. You know what it's like in a live studio?
Yep.
But they were in the Melbourne office, Melbourne studio, and it was just me in Brisbane, and just one camera which I could hardly see, and I had to talk into that, and there were 3 or 4 of them going at it, and I couldn't tell who was which.
Yep.
So I couldn't answer by name, which is what I like to do, and I like to see people's eyes. So I said to them, next time I want to do it in Melbourne.
Yep.
And because they called up probably half a dozen times to apologise for the way I was treated.
Yep.
So I said, yeah, I'm happy to do that next time. And next time I got into Melbourne, I called them up. No.
No, it's all part of the game, I
think.
Yeah,
they want to try and intimidate you, keep you hidden to try and make your performance poor.
Yeah,
yeah.
But
it was fun.
It's all mockery, but I reckon you've done well. I reckon it was pretty good. It showed them for the childish way they kind of conduct interviews.
Control, mate. Yeah. Always beneath control is fear.
Yeah,
and that's what these people are scared.
Going into media, Sky News, a figure from Melbourne, I don't know if you know him, but his name's Blair Cottrell. He appeared on Sky News, an interview with, I think it was Adam Giles, and since then there's been an outcry, and they've shut down showing Sky News at Melbourne train stations. A Labor minister, Jacinta Allen, she's called for to take him down from the actual train stations because apparently she said the interview was played, but it never was played. Do you think that's kind of a censorship or some sort of something driven there? You reckon?
Oh, you've just labelled it with the right word. It's definitely censorship.
Yep.
But more than that, it's fear.
Yep.
They're afraid of people actually hearing different opinions.
Yep.
And that shows that they're on very shaky ground. It also shows they don't have much confidence because they can't rebut us. They can't rebut people who are speaking freely.
Yeah, they deplatform.
They're lost.
They deplatform everyone.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. So the UN, to people out there, it's very confusing. It confuses me. What do we have to fear from the UN?
Fear the loss of our country's sovereignty, loss of our country's governance, fear the destruction of our economy, fear the destruction of freedom, removal of freedom. There are just about everything we have to fear from these people. They're control freaks, they're unelected, they've got no accountability whatsoever to anyone. They're a power unto themselves, and what they're doing, they've said it themselves at senior levels of the UN, they're saying their aim is to enact global governance around the world without being elected. And it's very easy to govern a body if you've got people in key places. Now, we haven't got time for that. I'm happy to talk about that some other time, but we haven't got time for that right now. But they're using various mechanisms to smash borders. They use immigration, for example, to smash borders, so you can just move people freely.
Yep.
Our dopey government is now talking about the compact with the UN, where the UN would select which refugees come here. That's a removal of sovereignty right there. The Paris Agreement, it's called an agreement. The Paris Agreement for the UN pushed it on energy. We and other nations signed up to it. Most nations are not even meeting their commitments. But our country is now going to legislate those commitments. So we're going to destroy our economy. We're already exporting jobs overseas thanks to John Howard's renewable energy target, in which the Labor ramped up. We're exporting jobs and industries from the rural sector by controlling property rights, which is the UN's agenda. Again, John Howard stole those property rights with no compensation whatsoever. So you can see that UN hides underneath this climate change, which is complete nonsense. There's no evidence to showing that humans affect the global climate the way they're claiming, none at all. They've said that that's their vehicle because you see, if you're exhaling carbon dioxide here and it's affecting, so they say, someone in Puerto Rico, well, we got to control you. That's their vehicle. And then they've got 2 other initiatives, sustainability and biodiversity. So with biodiversity, they say, see that fungus over there, that critter over there, that plant over there? It's more important than you. You can't build a house there. You can't raise an industry there. Then sustainability, there's a whole pile of regulations that govern how we can use our economy, how we transport, how we live, what food we eat. These are real. There's a booklet, it's about that thick, that was published around 1992. It's called the UN's 21st century. It's called the UN Sustainable Declaration for the Environment and Industry Development. UN's Declaration for Industry and Development and Environment. And this thing seeks to control how we run our lives in our society. In other words, it doesn't matter who you elect in Canberra, it doesn't matter who you elect in Melbourne, Sydney or Brisbane, it doesn't matter who you have controlling your local council, because they're all controlled by the UN.
Yeah, so basically a foreign element is dictating what we do in this country.
Correct.
And handicapping us in a way, like handicapping
Correct.
us and trying to bring us down to the level of other nations. That's how I kind of see it in layman's terms.
That's a good summary. And the thing is, what they're saying is that we need to be sustainable. Well, everyone loves that, see, and that's the other thing about the UN. It's an entirely control-oriented organisation. It runs the language. Now, there's nothing sustainable about the UN sustainability because it exists only with subsidies.
Yep.
But they're claiming that's sustainable. It's rubbish. So these things are going to drive us bankrupt. They're already hurting us economically, and they're hurting our governance. Many of the regulations are put in place without ever going through Parliament.
Yep.
And so if you ask most politicians, they will honestly tell you they don't know about Agenda 21.
They've never seen it. It went through the back door.
Correct.
Yeah.
But it's there. We've held it up in the Senate, talking about it. It's there. It's real, and it's destroying this country. We have to get out of the UN, and the UN has to get out of us.
Yep, that sounds good. I agree with that. It's gone right over my head, a lot of this stuff, but I'm trying to get into it. But let's talk about Apex in Melbourne. With Labor government, we've got a state election coming up. As you know, I'm from Melbourne. Daniel Andrews.
Fill in the details for me.
Yep. There's a group of South Sudanese immigrants that have been causing a lot of crime in Melbourne, and I think they're 0.1% of the population in Victoria, Sudanese born, but they're committing 8% of the violent crimes. And how do you feel about Victoria, and do you think this is a major problem for Victoria in this election this year?
Well, I can't say what the Victorians are thinking, but I'm guessing it certainly is from the headlines and from what we've heard from people. A lot of people are saying they want one nation to contest the election down there. We're not ready for that because we want to do it properly. So that'd make some people disappointed. But it really is out of control down there. You can't even talk about it, apparently.
Yeah, you can't. You can't mention the word gang. No,
and because we might be offending someone. But if they're a different colour or a different race, then we would be expecting them to be dealt with. But they're not.
No, they're not.
They're just kids.
And the police are letting them get away. They don't charge them there on the spot like they used to many years ago. They're kind of they've got a strategy. I don't know if it's a proper strategy. They actually let them go and they catch them a few weeks later, or try and charge them a few weeks later, which I don't think is going to really do anything. It's not really affecting the problem. But
so that really is an issue about how those people got in here, because they're not fitting in. We want people who are willing and able to assimilate and integrate. That's it, full stop. Border protection and border control and who you allow in to your country is fundamental to governance and sovereignty. That's what the UN wants to break down. It's breaking it down in the EU, and they're doing that deliberately to smash the borders.
Yep.
And what you'll find is that the former totalitarian states from Eastern Europe, the Hungaries, the Czechoslovakia, the Polands, they're the ones that are getting upset because they've seen this before. They've seen mass control, totalitarian control exercised through the Soviet Union. That's why the Hungary and Czechoslovakia and those countries are standing up against the UN and saying no more.
Yep. Also with Queensland, I've noticed that it's less politically correct up here. People are down to earth. And I go to Victoria, and do you have any theories as to why Victoria is, in my opinion, such a left-wing state and kind of it's been engulfed by political correctness, and up here in Queensland is safe? Do you understand? Because I can't get my head around it. I don't understand.
I've noticed for a long while that Western Australians and Queenslanders tend to be more into freedom of speech and freedom to move and associate than Victorians. But that's hard to generalise. There are many fine Victorians. So
there is.
I can't give you an answer to that question. I try to shut my mouth if I don't know the answer.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I've got to put a negative question in here because a lot of patriots have been talking about this with the preferencing.
Oh yeah.
The latest by-election preferencing against the sitting seat. Do you think that was negative or a positive to do that?
Well, it's really simple. That wasn't the latest by-election, by the way. In the latest by-election, that was at Longman just last month.
Yep.
I think what you're probably talking about is the state election.
The state election.
Yeah, last November.
Yep.
Many of our voters come from both the tired old parties.
Yep.
Many Labor people are disgusted with the modern Labor Party. It's not a Labor Party. It doesn't protect workers, it steals from workers, it rips workers off, it takes advantage of people. The Liberal Party used to be for business. It's no longer for business. It's for multinationals. Both the tired old parties have made sure that multinationals don't have to pay company tax. I mean, that's disgraceful. The Liberals did it since 1953. Labor made it even worse in about 1980s, 1985, something like that with Bob Hawke. So people are tired of the tired old parties. And many Labor people are voting for us, and many Liberal people are voting for us. Now, for the state election, the number one thing we've been saying, and it's starting to catch, Neil, is that you control your preference. You, the voter. It's not us.
Exactly, and I've said that too before. Yeah,
it's not the party, it's you.
Yep.
So when someone comes to us and we're handing out a vote card, they say, give us a look at your preferences. And I say, no, this is our guide. You control your preferences. If you want to follow our guide, do this. If you want to put Liberal ahead of Labor, do it this way. If you want to put Labor ahead of Liberal, do it this way.
Yep.
So that's the first thing. Now, Palaszczuk did an absolutely brilliant campaign in many ways for the state election. They came out before the election was announced and said, one nation, steamy piles of smelly stuff, you know?
Yep.
And they made us not wanted.
Yep, like
so
a toxic, yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
So the Liberal Party, we can't talk to these people. We can't be seen in public talking to one nation.
And I think that's a big problem we have on the conservative side of politics.
Correct.
It's like the left, this is my words, but the left, in my opinion, right from the Greens and Labor, I've seen them actually consorting with anarchists, and they're very ingrained together, and that's totally fine. You could be with communists and all sorts of people, but on the conservative side of politics, they seem very scared of the media and don't want to kind of mix with anyone, and it kind of weakens the whole conservative element of our country. Do you see that as well? That kind of
very much. But coming back to the election, so what Palaszczuk did was make sure the LNP in the gutless form would not talk to us. So we can't talk to anyone. Palaszczuk's already said they will put us last in preferences. So we're not going to go to them in preference. So, and we can't go to the LNP because they won't even talk to us. So what do? Well, we'll come right down the middle. Preference every sitting member last. Apart from the Greens. Greens always last.
Good,
all right, so we've got that, so it's neutral. And then we made videos, we kept telling people, you own your preferences, you decide. So that started to cut through in terms of owning the preferences. So what that did though, it cost the LNP 2 or 3 seats. But it also cost us 2 or 3 seats because the dopey LNP preference against us, and we would have won 3 seats. We could have been in a coalition with the Liberal National Party in Queensland, and we would have had the upper hand. We would have been able to say, you want a coalition, you'll come to heel on these issues that are destroying farming, that are protecting the future of water supply in this country. Real issues that matter to people, not all the stuff that the Liberal Party and Labor Party have been going on about. So if the Liberal Party had any guts and had talked to us, we could have sorted out something possibly. But we always say to people, regardless of any discussions at senior levels of the party, you, the voter, control your preferences. We've got to get that through to people.
So Lauren Southern was in Sydney recently. We'll talk about the big buzzword now, Islam, and she was prevented from walking down a road in Lakemba because they had a mosque on the road. A high-ranking police officer from the footage said that she couldn't walk down the road because she was going to cause a breach of the peace. Do you feel that was wrong?
I'm not a lawyer, but I think it was totally wrong. How someone can walk down the street, if she's attacked, she caused the attack just by being there. I mean, this is Australia. We should be free to be able to walk on any street in the country. Right. Okay, we're not going to abuse people, we're not going to incite a riot deliberately, but we should be able to walk anywhere in this country, and that's what I mean. We want people who will assimilate and integrate, who are willing and able to assimilate and integrate to come in here. That's it. That's right. Other people, we don't need them, and we don't want them.
If they're going to cause strain, I think they're what is the number one responsibility of the government? Protection of its people. Would you say that's one of the high reasons for a government?
As I see it, governments were formed by the people to provide a service, and the 3 services they provide are to protect life, protect property, and protect freedom. They're the 3 fundamental things, and government in this country is abdicating protecting life. It's actually causing deaths in this country through the energy policy and other policies, through medicinal cannabis policy. It's not allowing medicinal cannabis easy use. Protecting property, it's actually stealing farmers' property rights. It's stealing coastal residents' property rights in New South Wales and Queensland, and it's stealing urban property rights from urban homes. It's also now restricting freedom in many, many ways, because regulations are out of control, and also because political correctness, which is pushed by both the tired old parties, is destroying the ability to speak. And if you can't speak freely, you restrict creativity, you restrict trade, you restrict initiative, you restrict commerce, you restrict new inventions, and you restrict basic security items. Things like, if you can't talk about this particular issue, then that issue just floods under the carpet. So it's a deliberate tactic to try and disarm people who like freedom. It's a deliberate tactic to take control of this country.
Just one more thing, you don't have to answer, it's up to you. Sam Dastyari, should he be charged for treason?
Well, as I said, I don't like making comments unless I'm informed, and I don't know enough of the details there. But Sam puts China before Australia. So that's my answer.
That's 100% confirmed, yeah, he does. All right, thanks Malcolm, thanks for the interview. Thanks for coming down to see me, and hopefully this will be up on the page soon.
Okay.
Thanks Malcolm, cheers.